Once you start using layers and multiple images combined together, you will realize that sometimes you want to have some sort of interaction between the layers. And one of the best and easiest way to achieve that is by using the blend modes in the layers panel. So let me show you a very simple example. We have this very dramatic shot here with the firefighters and the smoke in the background. But let's say I want to make this look even more dramatic. So I want the edges to be almost like burnt or add some grunge to it. So for that, I'm going to go to the File menu and choose Place Embedded. And I downloaded a few images already, like this one here called Grunge Frame. And once I choose Place, it will be placed on top of this original image. And I'm going to make this as big as my frame. So I'm going to extend it out completely. And I'm not worried about the distortion here because it's just a simple texture. But by default, you can see this one doesn't have any transparency. So it has white details in the middle and the black burnt edges all around. Now, instead of reducing the opacity, which could be also one way to blend these two images together, there's a much better way to do it. I will keep it on 100% opacity, and instead I just go to the option here in the layers panel called normal. That's the list of blend modes or blending options we have. And in these cases, if I want to keep the dark details visible but hide all bright details from this black and white image, I can use multiply. With multiply, I get exactly what I wanted. So I keep the dark details from this layer on top, and only those will be blended onto the image below. And everything that was white or really bright will be completely transparent. How amazing is that? So let's try this on another image. I'm going to go to another nice photograph, and I will go to File, Place, Embedded, and choose this other one here called Grunge Frame White. So let's place that in here. And this is slightly different. And by the way, you can find these textures on Google easily. If you just search grunge texture or grunge frame or any kind of keyword that you think you will be able to use for your projects, I'm sure you will be able to find things like this. Download them and then you can start using them in your compositions. If I were to use multiply on this, remember multiply adds the dark details, then this is what's going to happen. We will only see whatever was white on this image. So this is not perfect because I want to obviously see the image itself, and I only want to see this effect around the edges. So instead of multiply in this case, I'm going to use screen. Screen is another blend mode which is also very useful. In that case, anything that was white will be still visible, and all the dark details, the black details in our case, will be completely transparent. So you can remember screen as the opposite of multiply. But what if you want to use black on the frame? With the same texture, you would like to invert it. Well, very simple. All you need to do is to go to the image menu, and under adjustments, you can choose invert. So once you do that, it inverts the colors, and then you can switch back to multiply. So in case you work with black and white textures, it's very easy. You just have to invert the colors and then decide which one you want, the multiply or the screen blending option. Just as a side note, I would mention that with Photoshop CC, you will get the invert as a smart filter, which can be turned on and off, as you can see. And that way I can just turn it off and go back to screen to be able to swap between the two options. Or once again, I can turn it back on and switch back to multiply. So whichever fits what I would like to create. But if you have earlier versions like CS6 and your placed images come in as smart objects, you won't be able to use invert directly on the smart object. You would have to first right click and rasterize your smart object texture, and then you will be able to use invert. And by the way, invert is it has a shortcut. It's Command or Control I. So that's also useful to know. And last but not least, let me show you one more blend mode. I'm going to bring in another image. So once again, File, Place, Embedded, and I'm going to choose this one, Paper Texture. So let's place that on top of this as well. I'm going to also make it completely covering up the whole canvas. Press enter. And for this layer, I'm going to choose not the multiply, not screen, but I'm going to use overlay. That's my third favorite blend mode, which is somewhere between the two options. So it not only blends the dark details, but also the bright details on the image. So let's see without the grunge frame. And I'm going to turn off the paper texture that was before. This is after. So you can see that all the tonal values, the colors of the paper texture are now merged onto or blended onto the image in the background. When I move it around, you can see exactly how this layer is blended into the image behind it. Okay, so overlay, you can remember it as somewhere between multiply and screen, but mainly remember it that you can use it well when you want to also blend colors. So when it's not just black and white details, but colors, like any textures that can create some kind of grit or atmosphere on your images. And of course, you can combine multiple blending options as well. Just like here, you can see now I have an overlay with my paper texture and a multiply blend mode on my grunge frame. And this is really just scratching the surface, because you can see how many different blend modes we have here. What I recommend is to play around with them and notice that they are grouped. So there's a group for multiply. They are very similar. There's another group for screen. Also, they are very similar. And these are also quite similar in the effect to overlay. So you can remember multiply, screen, and overlay as the main blend modes, and then there's alternative versions of them, and there's some special blend modes as well further down in the list. I'm going to talk more about these later, but for now that's all I wanted to show you about blend modes. And with that, we covered almost everything you need to know about layers. Anything else that will be still in the layers panel, like masking, smart objects, and selections. But in our next video, we are going to focus on another very important aspect of working in Photoshop, understanding how to work with color modes.